Nice. Yeah, baby. Now then guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Bob, of course you'd know that if you were subscribed. And in today's video we're going to be taking a look at this. This is the Shooters Global shot timer, and we're going to be finding out if this thing lives up to the hype. So I've been using this timer now for over 6 months, so more than enough time to decide if it's worth the hefty price tag. And on that note, I did purchase this timer myself. This is my own unit. I was in the market for a new timer, something that did a little bit more for me, and this looked like it could tick all the right boxes. So yeah, this is my own timer. It's not going to be a biased review or anything like that. Bought with my own money. Shooters Global have no idea who I am, and rightly so. So let's get into it. So as well as being a shot timer, and actually a pretty decent shot timer, which we'll get to in a minute, this thing's so much more than that. It's a stage planner, it's a training aid, it's kind of a social media platform for shooters. There's an awful lot going on with this unit, and it sounds like that's quite a lot to take in. So what we'll do, we'll break it down into kind of bite-sized segments for you as we go forward with the video. So we'll start with the timer itself, and there were 2 models of this available. There was the SG, which is the model we have here, and also the SG Pro, but the Pro's been recently discontinued due to manufacturing issues and things like that. If you don't know already, Shooters Global were based in Ukraine. They've had to move to Poland, obviously, so there's been a little bit of a wait for things. So I contacted them the day. They're hoping to get production back up and running sometime in the future with the SG Pros, but for now, the SG is the model we're looking at. This is the most popular one. This is the one they're still shipping. You may have also seen MDT and Canada have started producing their version of the shot timer. It's basically the same unit, it's just under their branding with slightly different coloured buttons and things, but it's essentially the same timer. So like I say, the one I've got here is the standard SG model, and at first glance, it's a pretty unassuming little unit.
That's what she said.
You've got 3 rubberized side buttons, a buzzer, a microphone, and a pretty generously sized LCD screen. There is also a USB-C port at the bottom there and a little lanyard loop. And that USB-C port is because this thing runs off an internal rechargeable battery, and it's also compatible with wireless charging too. Now, in terms of battery life, Shooters Global say you'll get up to 30 days runtime out of this thing using it on a daily basis. They don't give exact figures, but I've had this thing for over 6 months now, and I use mine weekly for a good few hours. Every time I go to the range, it gets turned on. It doesn't get turned off until I leave the range. And I've only charged this thing 3 times in the last 6 months, so I don't think battery life is going to be an issue. Now let's move back to that LCD screen. It's advertised as being the biggest on the market, and it's certainly the biggest one I've ever seen.
That's what she said.
And that large display means you can fit a lot of information on the screen whilst also keeping it easy to read and relevant to the shooter. The display itself uses a monochrome LCD panel, which is really energy efficient and also works really well in direct sunlight. I've certainly never struggled to see this in, with the sun hitting it. And the unit is as well backlit for use in low light conditions, which is again a really good feature. That backlight is controlled automatically by a little sensor on the front of the unit, and after no inputs detected, it will power off for a little while, but to bring it back on, you just need to press a button, or if you're obviously shooting and it's recording sound, it will keep the display on as well. Lastly, we've got our 3 rubberized side buttons. They are just located on one side of the unit. You've got up, down and select, and that's great because it means you can use the timer one-handed, and also if you are wrong-handed, you can flip the display around and use the timer with your other hand as well, which is again very, very cool. It makes this unit completely ambidextrous for one-handed use. In terms of mounting, the timer comes with a magnetic base plate with a pocket clip, so you can mount it to your belt or your shooting gear. There is also a small lanyard loop on the bottom of the unit for wearing it around your neck if you're going to be ROing or buddying somebody. All of those come in the box with the timer, as well as your charging cable and a bit of literature as well. So that just about covers the physical build of the timer, but how does this thing perform? Well, in my testing so far, it's been brilliant. I've shot this in a wide variety of situations. I've shot it from wide open fields to indoor ranges, with centre fires, with shotguns, with down to rim fires, even suppressed 22s as well. And I've always been able to find a setting that will pick up those gunshots accurately. Now, that's not to say that, certainly with those lower report calibers like the 22s, it doesn't take a little bit of fine tuning to actually get it to pick up reliably, because it takes a lot of trial and error, to be honest. But once you've got it dialed in, you're going to find something that reliably picks up those shots for the environment you're shooting in and the firearms you're using. And whilst that might sound tedious, you're probably thinking you don't want to have to be messing around with timer settings every time you pick up a different gun or shoot at a different range. You don't have to do, because you can set up individual profiles and save them to the timer. So all you need to do is select that gun, select that profile you've created for whatever you're going to shoot, which kind of leads me on to the next portion of the review, which is all the features this thing packs. So yeah, this thing is absolutely packed with features. And the first one we'll talk about is those profiles we just mentioned. So yeah, you don't have to worry about changing settings on the timer every time you pick up a different gun. There are pre-selected kind of preset profiles in there, like 308, 12 gauge, things like that, 22s, handguns, etc. There's a bunch of them in there you can select from, which should get you somewhere you need to be, but you can also create and fine-tune your own for your own rifle, your own situation. So whether you're shooting a suppressed 22 in an open field, or you're shooting a 308 in an indoor range, whatever it might be, you'll always find a setting on this that will work reliably. And once you've done that, you can just save it, create your own name for it, whatever it might be, Bob's 22, whatever, create that profile, save it, and then the next time you're out, you just select it from the list if that's what you're shooting. I think that's a really underrated feature. Whilst there are a lot of adjustable timers out there that you can change the sensitivity on and the echo filter and all that type of thing, you have to generally manually do it, which isn't the best because you're having to faff about. Certainly if you're shooting a few different guns, I'll often go up to the range with 2 or 3 guns, be trying different things. So this is just super easy to do. I can just literally click it from the list, select it, I'm up and I'm shooting. I'm not faffing about with the sensor. I don't have to forget to change the settings back to what they were, or trying to remember each gun's different settings. So yeah, very cool feature that. And just whilst we're talking about sensitivity, this unit is fully software driven. So unlike certain units out there where you can adjust the sensitivity by manually turning a pot, I think something like the pack time or something like that, which is basically changing the amplification of the circuit. On this, it's software driven. So you just select your sensitivity on there, and you're telling the program what to pick up as a gunshot and when to pick up a gunshot. So yeah, very cool. It gives an infinite amount of adjustability with this. I will say though, those lower sensitivities, you will sometimes pick up knocks and bangs and other noises as gunshots. That's not really unique to this timer. That's pretty much every timer that has adjustability on it. If you set it quite low, it's going to pick up ambient noise sometimes. It's going to pick up knocks and bangs if you're running around with this rattling about on your gear. However, I'd much rather have a few additional knocks and bangs picked up as gunshots rather than the timer not picking up all my gunshots. But safe to say, with this timer you can find a sensitivity that will work with any gun and save a profile for it, even down to like airsoft guns and dry firing as well. This thing can be set so sensitive it will pick up the lightest of trigger pulls for dry fire. And whilst we're talking about dry fire, there is an absolute ton of features in here to help you with dry fire, to help you with dry practice. Really cool. You can set like reps and rep times and things like that. So say you want to practice your ready ups, just getting onto the gun and behind the gun and getting that first shot off. You can set this to say do a set of 10 or 20 or 30, whatever it is. Set all your times up in there when and where you want it to pick up the sound. Press the timer to go, put it down, and you don't need to bother with it until after you've done your set of 30. The timer will automatically do each set and let you know when the set's finished and when the next one's starting. So it makes it very quick, very efficient with your time. And then you can, once the unit's done, it'll let you know and you pick it up and you've got all your time stored there. And if you're thinking that kind of sounds a little bit complicated again, well, you're kind of right. But that big LCD screen and some well laid out menus do make it as easy as possible for you. But the best thing is you don't even have to use the timer for that, because there is a companion app for your smartphone or a tablet that will Bluetooth connect to the timer, and you can do everything from that. You can input all your sets, all your data, all your profiles, etc., and it will synchronize back and forth to the timer and vice versa. And that kind of brings us on to our next portion of the review, which is the app. So like we said earlier, this thing isn't just a shot timer, it's a fully integrated training tool. And once you get into the app, you'll understand why. So with the app, you can look back at every single shot you've ever taken with it, which is also something you do on the timer as well. But you can remotely control the timer from the phone or tablet. You can record real-time video of your stages with an overlay from the timer. You can build stages in the app and run through them in first person. You can even use augmented reality to run through a physical stage setup. You can upload stages to the app for others to see and try. You can see other people's drills. Honestly guys, the list just goes on and on. And another great thing is that the app and the timer software are constantly being updated by Shooters Global to improve performance and squash any bugs. I mean, honestly, I could probably talk about all the features of the app and the timer for half an hour or so, guys, but they're all on Shooters Global website, so if it's something you're interested in reading more about, go check out their website and take a look for yourselves. So we've got a really good tunable timer and a really feature-rich app. So it's all sounding pretty good so far, but there's going to be some downsides, right? Well, yeah, there's a couple of gripes. Firstly, I'd say the learning curve with the Shooters Global is a lot steeper than with any other timer I've ever used. It can just be a little bit overwhelming at first when you first get into the app. There's a lot going on. My next gripe would be that magnetic base. Whilst it's actually a really good idea and I do like it, it means you can get very easy access to the timer, just clipping it on and off. You can hand it to your buddy if they're going to time you or whatever. And the magnet is very strong as well. There's, you know, the timer, it does take quite a bit to get knocked off there. But from time to time, I have knocked it off by like sweeping a rifle into it or catching on my gear or whatever. And also, if you're running a pretty energetic drill where you might be running across the range or whatever, sometimes it does have a tendency to kind of fling off. I found it hanging upside down like this once or twice. And also a couple of times I've completely lost it from my setup as well. In fact, just the other month, I was out with this thing. It was pretty hot weather, so I was just in shorts, had this thing clipped to them. I was sprinting across the range at full tilt, and this thing came off the magnet base. I kicked it and it flew about 20 odd yards down some rocks. So yeah, not the best. I would like to see in future like a case with a clip as well, so it just provides a little bit more of a robust mounting for you. So that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but you just have to think about where you're mounting it on your gear, so it's not going to get swept off, not going to get knocked, and it's not going to come loose. But to be fair to the timer, it's actually holding up really well. It's taken its fair share of knocks and bangs. I mean, you might not be able to see, but the screen does have quite a few scratches on it there. It's got a few little dents and divots in it where it's been thrown around quite a bit, but it's holding up really, really well. I've been impressed with it so far. But yeah, I mean, I would kind of like to see maybe a silicon case, something like that. I know Shooters Global have kind of teased that on their Instagram potentially as a future kind of addition to this. And if you're watching, I think it would be a really, really good idea, Shooters Global. Possibly even something with a built-in clip, a pocket clip or something like that on it. So you're not relying on that magnet base. You can just put it directly to your belt or to your gear and just keep it a little bit more secure. But apart from those few little gripes, I've got no real complaints with the unit. And I think they're far outweighed by all the positive points with it as well. A few of the big ones for me would be like the tunability, the ability to go from shooting high caliber rifles right down to airsoft and always reliably find a setting that works for it. The profiles, the ability to save those settings once you've dialed them in, it's an absolute lifesaver. I can decide whether I'm shooting my suppressed 22 or whether I'm just shooting my regular 22. I can set it up from all my different guns. I don't have to mess about. They're all there, ready to go. It just saves so much time and effort. That backlit display is an absolute lifesaver in low light shooting conditions. I do a lot of that. And there's nothing worse than trying to be fumbling around trying to see the screen of one that doesn't have a backlit display, or trying to shine a flashlight on it. The amount of timers out there that still don't have backlit displays is baffling to me. So that is an absolute lifesaver. The ability to flip that display as well, absolutely brilliant. It does make this truly ambidextrous, single-handed use. Now, I know what you're thinking. Left-handed people shouldn't have access to firearms or even the outdoors in general. And I completely agree with you. We're on the same page. You know, it's a sickness and it needs treating as such. But there may be times where your gear setup dictates that you have to run the timer on your offside and use it with your offhand. So the ability to just flip the unit round and the display flip round, you can use it completely ambidextrous. That is an absolutely superb feature, really underrated on this timer. And finally, those software updates and firmware updates for the timer and the app. Really, really good. I've had this, say, about 6 months now, and in that time I've probably had about 5 or 6 updates. Some of them I've not noticed any difference whatsoever. Others have added full new feature sets, new submenus, etc. to the units. So really, really good. Shooters Global are constantly updating it, squashing bugs, improving features, etc. And they also seem quite responsive to feedback. So if you've got any suggestions or anything like that, get in touch with them, because you never know, they might just end up implementing it for you. So yeah, the Shooters Global timer does get a big thumbs up from me. It's the only timer on the market I've found that ticks all the boxes I need it to. There's probably a lot of features on there that I'm not really going to use all that often, but the ones I do use are implemented really well, and it just seems to work for me. And whilst this is a very expensive timer, I do think you're getting a lot for your money. And in my humble opinion, I'd say this is now the gold standard in shot timers. I think other manufacturers have got a long way to go to get to where the Shooters Global is. So if you're in the market for a new timer, or you're maybe just not quite happy with your current one, I definitely recommend checking out Shooters Global. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And once again, guys, I'm nothing to do with them. This is my own timer bought with my own money. I just like recommending good products to you guys. Of course, if Shooters Global want to, send me a few things to review, who am I to stand in their way? So anyway, that's the video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, go ahead and hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel as well, so you don't miss out on seeing my beautiful face sporadically whenever I get a chance to post a video. But yeah, if you've got any questions or you have your own experiences with the timer you want to share, get down in the comments and let me know. And thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.